everyone, and thank you for joining us for the FDP's new member orientation webinar. I am Lillian Andrews, your host for today, and I want to go over a few logistical notes before we get started. If you have any technical issues during today's meeting, please contact Zoom technical support at 1-888-799-9666 and select option 2. The audio for today's webinar will be streamed through your computer speakers or through the call-in feature, depending on which you selected. Please submit any questions you have through the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If we are unable to get to your question during the webinar, it will be posted on the FDP's website. Today's webinar is being recorded. That recording, the meeting slides, will be posted on our website after the meeting. I'm now happy to turn things over to the FDP co-chairs, Michelle Masucci and Alex Albanak. Janae, you can go to the, yep.
Good morning. I'm Alex Albanak. I'm the Associate Vice Provost for Research Administration at Johns Hopkins University, and I'm the Administrative Co-Chair for the Federal Demonstration Partnership.
And I'm Michelle Masucci. I am the Vice President for Research at Temple University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I'm the Faculty Co-Chair of the FDP. Welcome. We're so happy to see all of you today.
Yes, welcome, and I hope that you get a lot out of this. And just as a reminder, there was a part 1 that is recorded in case you haven't seen it. But either way, I hope you get a lot out of this version. And can we go to the agenda, please? Next slide, please. Next slide. So today we are going to just provide a brief overview of phase 7. This is our new phase, and we have lots of new members. We're very excited to work with you. We're going to talk a little bit about our communications and our mailing lists and how you can keep up to date with all the happenings at FDP. We're also going to talk about the FDP operating guidelines. I think it's important for all new members to understand how we work as an organization, and that includes how to get involved. We have lots of committees and demonstrations, and we hope that this brief overview will give you some idea of the opportunities there are for you to participate with FDP. That includes some testimonials from some special categories of our members, including our faculty, our ERIs, and our emerging ERIs and IRIs. You'll know what that means. I'm sorry about the using acronyms, but and then at the end we'll have closing. We'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. Next slide, please. So as I said, if you missed the November 3rd workshop, it's on our website. Feel free to go back at any time at your convenience and go through the first of these 2 onboarding webinars. The topics include an overview of FDP, your responsibilities as a member, the different committees within FDP, and then again, a little bit more detail about our demonstrations and getting involved. Next slide, please.
So, you have all joined us as a part of the beginning of phase 7 of the FDP. As you may know from your applications, we've had multiple phases. And in anticipation of the start of phase 7, we embarked on a strategic planning activity for the FDP that was meant to assess where we've been and to take a look at where we should be going. This was a year-long process that we embarked upon, and it involved really reaching out across the stakeholders, both in our community and across the membership of the FDP. The goals that we ultimately identified for the FDP were to continue to demonstrate a positive impact on administrative efficiency and effectiveness, to really pull in an evaluation strategy so that we can do a better job of assessing what's working well for the FDP and how we can measure what our impacts are as we strive to reduce administrative burden in the federal grant landscape. We're also seeking to strengthen the resources and the infrastructure to sustain our growth. And as you all know, we have had quite significant growth in the FDP institutional membership, and we're really proud of that accomplishment. We're actively engaging with community partners, and that includes the representative partners from each institution, as well as reaching out to other organizations that can help us to advance the goals of the FDP, and particularly that goal of reducing administrative burden when it comes to grant administration. Finally, we're really working on communications and trying to make sure that we're in touch with all of our different component parts of the organization, including making sure that we tell a powerful story to both internal and external audiences. So the solicitation of institutions to join the FDP led to a very large increase in membership. If you go to the next slide, you can get to see the data on that. We have 217 institutional members now, 44 of whom are emerging research institutions and 32 of which are minority serving institutions. We really made a significant effort in the last membership drive to increase the participation of emerging and minority serving institutions so that we could do a better job of balancing out the diversity in the organization. And we work directly with 10 federal agencies, including NSF, NIH, ONR, AF, OSR, ARO, AMMRC, and NASA, EPA, and DHS. And if you haven't already figured it out from our first few slides here, we're an acronym heavy organization. So just be prepared for needing to keep track with that. Next slide. So I'm turning it over to David Wright, our executive director.
Good morning, everyone. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. One of the main tools we use for communications within the FDP is our mailing lists or listservs. Just to kind of point out, if you hear the term mailing list or listserv in the context of FDP, they're synonymous. So when you hear one, you can think of the other. To access or to gain access to subscribe to any of our lists or listservs, you can just use the mailing list link, which is in the navigation bar at the top of every single page on the FDP website. Most of the lists are set up as topic-based lists. So we'll have lists for IRB and IACUC, and we'll have lists for FATA and various other subjects. All of our listservs are for FDP members only, with the exception of the Friends listserv. The Friends listserv is specifically for non-members. So if you are a member, do not sign up for the Friends list. The main one that you want to sign up for getting general information is the FDP main list. And this is for general announcements and FDP related information, announcements about upcoming meetings or upcoming webinars. It'll be information that comes out from our federal partners about updates of things that are going on within the agencies and so forth. That list is moderated, meaning that any note sent to that list will come to me for approval beforehand. Generally, most members won't be posting to that list just because of the nature of the information sent out to that list. Most postings for members should go to those more targeted lists so that you can get you hit the right people to try and get the response that you need. Also, all the lists that are open to FDP members are open to all FDP members with the exception of the faculty listserv. That is for faculty only. Next slide, please. Just a couple of tips here. Just because you become members or attend a meeting, you're not automatically added to any of the mailing lists. That you need to sign up for those by going to the website and getting to the mailing list site. You won't automatically be subscribed to any of those. You can sign up others if you would like. If say we've got the administrative representative from a particular institution wants to make sure that their faculty members signed up for the faculty listserv, they're able to do that. Just go to the mailing list page and use their name and email information. All subscriptions are verified, meaning that when someone requests to subscribe to a list, that request comes to me. I'll verify that the person is from a member institution before going ahead and proceeding with the subscription. That way we make sure that people are getting onto the right lists and so forth. If you're already subscribed to one or more lists, and you think, oh, I need to subscribe to this other list, you don't need to resubscribe to the list to which you are already subscribed. All that's going to do is create duplication on the lists. One of the policies that we have held for a long time with the FDP is that the mailing lists or listservs are not a place to post job opportunities. At least once a month or so, I'll get a request that says, oh, I'd like to post this job opportunity. But for a long time, it's just been against the policy of the FDP. And the last tip that I have could be one of the more important ones for you. At the bottom of every message that's sent to any of the FDP lists, there are unsubscribe links. So it makes it really easy. If you're getting flooded by a particular mailing list, you can unsubscribe very easily. But where that becomes problematic is if you forward that email to someone because you think they need to have this information, if they think, oh, I'm subscribed to this list, I want to get off, and they click that link, you're the one who need to get unsubscribed, not them. So just be careful when you're sending or when you're forwarding on information from the mailing lists. Next slide, please. All right, Zoom poll. We just want to try and figure out how and when everyone on this call is using the FDP website. So first is just how often do you really use this website? So we'll just give a few minutes or a few seconds and let people vote. Lily, just let me know when I need to move on. Okay, results of the first poll. I used the website. We have 21% say very often, 41% say occasionally, and 39% say not very often. So it's quite a mix. All right, next slide, please. How do you make, for those that do use the website, how do you use it? What types of information are you trying to find? So let's go ahead and fill out this poll. All right. All right, so we do have a good portion. So it looks like subaward templates and so forth are probably the most requested piece of information on the FDP website, which to me is not very surprising. All right, let's go on to the next, please. All right, so I know there are many of you that are on this call. Even though you may be new members, you might have been coming to meetings and attending things for a long time. So we're trying to gauge among our new members how familiar everyone is with the FDP, how it operates, what kinds of things that we do. All right, so it looks like about half of you are just now kind of getting into the FDP world, so welcome. Please don't hesitate to ask anyone for help or for information or how to get involved. All of us that have been here are here to help everyone who's new kind of insert themselves into our structure and our in our organization and get you up and going as quickly as we can. All right, next slide, please. All right, we have a document called the FDP Operating Guidelines. Next slide, please. This document is basically the organizational document of how the FDP operates at an administrative level. You can find this on the operations information page on the FDP website, which is when you go to the FDP website, it's under the About link, or you can also access it from the Executive Committee page as well. Next slide, please. I'm sure all of you can read, on the call can read, so I'm not going to go through all of these different areas, but these are all kind of the different subsections of the operating guidelines. So they cover a variety of different things that are FDP related. Next slide. All right, some of the recent updates. Now, the guidelines are definitely a living document, and moving into phase 7, we've had to make a lot of changes to the documentation, and there's going to be quite a bit more coming up as well. With the growth in membership, we're really having to put a lot more structure into how the FDP operates. So one of the things that we've done is we have operational and programmatic committees. I believe we went over a lot of these on the first call, but committees like the membership committee, the communications committee, the finance committee are all operational committees that just help the organization run at an administrative level. We've also added an infrastructure committee that is looking at very cross-cutting things that affect the organization as a whole. So we've really kind of delved in and looked at how those committees function and how they interact with all the other committees within the organization. Until recently, the term demonstration in federal demonstration partnership was a very narrow term. As we've moved into phase 7, we realized that we kind of needed to open that up to encompass a lot of the different types of activities that the FDP undertakes, and not just what we used to call a demonstration. Many of you on the call are new members because of a policy that we implemented going into phase 7, eliminating what we called system membership. This is where an organization would be a member, and by that membership, there would be affiliated organizations, sister organizations, sub-organizations within that overall membership would all be included in that system membership. Well, we've gotten rid of that. And so what it's kind of boiled down to is if an organization has a separate DUNS number or a different DUNS number, then that organization needs its own membership and is not eligible to be part of the overall membership of a different organization. We've also updated some of the language in the documentation, and we've moved from general membership to institutional membership to try and show that it's the organization or the institution is the member and not an individual. Also updated were the conditions of membership, meaning the responsibilities and the criteria for our members, the things that our members need to do in order to be members of the FDP. A very big change that we implemented right at the end of phase 6 before we moved into phase 7. Prior to this, we had an FDP chair and a vice chair. The chair was always an administrative representative, and the vice chair was always a faculty representative. And we really wanted to move more towards putting everyone on equal footing. And so we moved to the co-chair structure. So we have an administrative co-chair and we have a faculty co-chair. So that's Alex and Michelle. We have split them onto their 3-year terms, and we have split them out so that they don't roll over at the same time. So Michelle will be finishing up her last year of this term as the faculty co-chair, and then we will have an election later this year to either re-elect Michelle or elect a new faculty co-chair. And then 2 years from then, we'll do the same thing for Alex. As the executive director of the FDP, I am actually an employee of the FDP Foundation. The foundation was created to house and to operate things that don't use the federal dollars that come into the FDP. And so as the executive director of the FDP, I am actually on loan from the foundation. And so because of that, for HR reasons, we've moved my roles and responsibilities out from underneath the FDP, but to put them under the foundation documentation. That was just a much cleaner way to do it for those of you who know anything about HR rules and regulations. Next slide, please. All right, so I'll turn it over to Denise.
Thank you, David. Hi, everyone. Denise Moody, and I have here with me today Courtney Sweeney. What we're going to do is we hope everyone actually was able to attend the November 3rd webinar, the part 1 of this series, where we did discuss a bit about the demonstration definition that David just talked about as part of the phase 7 strategic planning process. But what we're going to do today is dive into each of the current demonstrations and the ways that each of our members can be involved with the demonstrations. So the next slide. I also want to remind everyone that please feel free, if you have questions, to put them in the chat box. We have moderators. So as we cover each of the demonstrations and you have specific questions, we have plenty of time, so send those in the chat. So just to briefly cover the demonstration definition, they do have to have specific objectives, and they need to fulfill the FDP mission of reducing administrative burden for our faculty and our administrators. They would typically involve a federal agency partner, and they have to undergo a review and approval process through the operating or the programmatic committees, as well as the executive committee. We have 5 different types of demonstrations. As David said again, we used to have a very narrow definition of demonstration that's been expanded to include these 5 different FDP demonstration types. So it's everything from exploratory initiative, tool, survey, to an ongoing project. Next slide. From the FDP homepage, which it looks like from the poll that some of you have navigated to this for various reasons, at least the homepage. So if you look at the homepage, we do point straight to the demonstrations website. You can navigate to the demonstrations website. This was created a few months ago to house all of the information as to what the 5 different demonstrations are, what approval process is required. It includes a proposal form. So if any of our members, any of you have ideas for new demonstrations, feel free to complete that form and then go through the various channels to get that reviewed and approved. And also on that website includes the list of current demonstrations that Courtney and I are covering today. And we're constantly trying to update that. So this one, the version that you see from a couple months ago, probably will be updated in the next month. And so as we cover each of the demonstrations, you'll see at the bottom of the slide some information that is very specific on how you can participate. This will include the mailing list that you can subscribe to, the website you can navigate to get more information, as well as if there's a standalone session that's held next week, we'll let you know what date and time that that's planned for. So please feel free to attend that session or look at the recording or get the PowerPoint slides afterwards. And I think one of the things that the FDP really wants to emphasize in phase 7 is volunteerism and engagement from each of our members. And so we really want to encourage everyone to participate in any way that you can. There will be a volunteer call that goes out by the FDP later on this month. So whatever skill set or interest that you have, we encourage you to participate in that volunteer call and get involved. So the next slide. The first demonstration is the expanded clearinghouse. This is an ongoing initiative as a result of a very successful pilot. And this is the online repository that houses all of the institutional profile information and alleviates the onerous, lengthy subrecipient commitment forms that we've been requesting in years past from each other. So this also helps the pass-through entities or the prime recipients to comply with the uniform guidance subrecipient monitoring requirements. This again came as a result of a very successful pilot, which I believe resulted in over 18,000 hours of reduction of administrative burden. And so the expectation of each of the members is that you keep your profiles updated. We have built into the system email alerts and reminders if you have a certification or assurance that may be expiring soon. And we constantly monitor those expirations if they start to pass and reach out to you to let you know, to work with you to make sure those are updated. Another expectation of our members is that we eliminate the lengthy subrecipient commitment forms that have all the requests for entity information that's already housed in the clearinghouse. And we have sample pushback language if you're getting that from one of your peers, and we also have a sample letter of intent that we can use that includes the project specific information. So we're really narrowing that. Otherwise it's not reducing the burden of which this is intended for. Okay, next slide. The next demonstration type is a tool that is in pilot right now. This is the Compliance Unit Standard Procedure, or CUSP, as many of you know about. This is an online repository that houses standard procedures for animal care protocols. It's gotten a lot of publicity because it came as a result of the CARES Act, and it's been being done in partnership with NIH's Office of Laboratory Animal Welfare. They've been extremely active. They're in pilot phase right now. We encourage any of our faculty and our administrators who handle animal protocols in any way to attend their session next week. It's really important, especially for our members, to provide feedback as they're undergoing the pilot stage, because this will be launched membership-wide. So we want it to be as useful as possible. So the next slide. And it looked like the reason most of you go to the website is to get sub-award templates, and that's a very good thing. Sub-award subcommittee will be very happy to hear that. The sub-award agreement templates, there are many types of model agreement templates. These are agreement templates of which includes the terms and conditions that everybody has mutually agreed on, and they are constantly updated. Sub-award subcommittee. In fact, they just recently updated these templates, a few of the templates in December. So next week's session is going to focus on what those updates included. And we also wanted to let everybody know that later on in January, the Sub-award subcommittee will put a call out or a notification out to, especially to our new members, they will be holding a session that discusses each of the model agreement templates and how to use them. And they thought that would be really helpful. And similar to the expanded clearinghouse, the expectation for the use as an FDP member is that we use these standard model agreements when we collaborate with each other. through a subrecipient relationship and not impose additional terms and conditions on each other. So we did want to emphasize that. And Courtney's going to then cover some additional demonstrations. So the next slide.
Thank you, Denise. So the next demonstration that we want to discuss is troublesome clauses. So this is an online database where FDP members can go in and access information about specific terms and conditions that may be problematic for them. And so this tool, you would need to go to the website to actually sign up to participate in. It's really helpful as far as the more people that use the tool and sign up to use the database, we can move, and we use that database to see how other agencies negotiate a specific clause. So the more and more people that participate, the more we can show how to use, or how maybe we negotiated a clause out. They've got a session next week. Let's see, sorry. So they have a session next week. And if you're interested in that, I highly encourage you to attend. Next slide. Next. Okay. So also in the same session, they're discussing the data transfer use and agreement. So this was recently created as a first step guide to help create consistency with terms and formats. So if you're interested in this particular one, I highly suggest that you also attend that and sign up for the contracts and the data stewardship listservs. They discuss this quite a bit. Next slide, please. Another one is an exploratory initiative, and we call this FACT, for the Faculty Administrator Collaboration Team. So this was created in 2017 by the faculty. The current co-chairs are Stephen Post and Suzanne Allstat from the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. It's to help to focus on understanding and improving the relationship between faculty and administrators. I personally participate in this group. Currently, there are 9 FDP institutions, and each one has to have a faculty and an administrative pair. They're having a session next week to discuss a little bit of trust. And I think that if you've signed up for some of the listservs, you should have seen a poll or a thought exchange. And so if you haven't seen that and you would like to participate, you can reach out to any of us and let us know. But we also hope that you'll attend that session next week. Next slide, please. So an ongoing exploratory initiative is also Science CV. And a lot of us have been hearing about this because of the implementation that NSF is adopting. So the session next week is really going to focus on hearing how adoption is going. We want you to participate by implementing on your campus. And so I hope that you'll also attend this session. Next slide, please. So this last one that we want to discuss is the faculty workload survey. And there's not necessarily a session that we're having at this particular meeting, but it comes up a lot in what we discuss in a lot of our different sessions. And so what the faculty workload survey is that it was a survey first published in 2007, where more than 6,000 federally funded faculty members at FDP institutions, they participated in. And what we found was that 42% of their research time was spent on administrative tasks. A second survey was administered in 2012 and had similar results, despite an increase in regulation. But our third survey in 2018 showed that there was an increase to 44.3% spent on administrative tasks. And so this workload survey comes up a lot. There will be additional surveys in future years. And we want to make sure that we continue to use this survey to show how we can try to reduce administrative burden on our faculty. So Next slide. I'd like to turn it over to our faculty testimonials.
Thank you, Courtney. Next slide, please. Oh, I think it's just our contact information. Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, thank you for talking about the faculty workload survey. I would just build on that for a moment and say that that survey is conducted with our FDP member institutions and open to all faculty members who are federally funded investigators at the time that the survey is being implemented. And what it does is it elicits their input on a number of different variables that affect how they spend their time on a day-to-day basis. For the faculty, this is one of the most important activities that we're involved in. In fact, it's one of the ways in which I personally got involved, which was to better understand how the survey was being designed and what it was aiming to accomplish. One of the primary things it does from a faculty perspective is it really helps us to kind of quantify and characterize the complexity of the role that we as faculty members play at our home institutions when we balance a number of different activities, one being our primary role as faculty involved in instruction and really dealing with the next generation of trainees in our respective fields. A second is the role that we play in eliciting funding for the research that we do. But most importantly, the third is actually implementing the programs of research that the federal government is investing in and that we are providing the leadership for. So those activities are complicated as it is. And then when we add on top of that, of course, needing to adhere to the regulatory environment and as well our institutional requirements for implementing grants, it can be quite a daunting challenge. And so the survey really helps to elicit that full picture of what faculty members are dealing with when they are actually implementing awards from the federal government. For me personally, those issues have always been ones that fascinate me in my day-to-day life as an active investigator. And I got involved in the FDP to really try to make a difference in helping give voice to the faculty experience for our administrative colleagues who I think really do a yeoman's job of trying to help think about the things that affect and impact the quality of that experience. I think it's always important to be able to give voice to what the faculty perspective on that is. And I think that the organization has really evolved since I've been involved. And I think that dates back to phase 5, to reflect carefully how all of the different things we're doing line up to support that faculty perspective. A second thing that I personally care a great deal about are all of the pipeline issues that we deal with in the academy, just making sure that we have an inclusive academy, that we're thinking about the issues of diversity and equity in a careful and profound way. And so when I first got involved, it was to lead an initiative called the Pipelines Initiative that was focused on trying to figure out how grants themselves can be either an agent of expanding the workforce and making sure that we have as broad of a participation as possible, or alternatively, what are the things that are barriers to that and what can we do to break those down? So that's been a big part of my involvement in FDP historically, and that's what led to me being willing to provide service at a higher level of leadership. That's a little bit of my story. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Robert Nobles from Emory.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. What I would share when I entered into FDP in phase 6, when I was with the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, it was really about elevating an opportunity for collaboration, being at the table and ensuring that the institution was represented and that we received firsthand information back from our federal colleagues. And that was achieved. And what you find as administrators and as faculty who participate in FDP is that you get this elevated platform to network and partner with our colleagues who are in the federal agencies and across the nation at various academic institutions and research institutions to tackle problems because we're all on the same, we're really on the same trajectory towards trying to reduce burden, both for administrators and for faculty. And so So what we have found, and I can recite a number of examples. One that pops up is when the regulations were changing related to clinical trials. One of my colleagues, Jason Carter, stood up in the crowd and was explaining how the clinical trial definition was going to be impactful, negatively impactful to the research enterprise, and how do we digest that? And our federal colleagues address those concerns really well, and then we go into work group sessions. You don't get this opportunity very often if you participate in other professional organizations to actually work side by side with our colleagues who sponsor the research that are in the regulatory frameworks, interested in tackling the issues and resolving those issues first and foremost. Our colleagues bring items to the forefront. We often hear of things prior to full implementation. We're part of the genesis of thought around resolving issues. We have meetings and discussions about each of the elements within the workload survey that add burden. We have sidebars with Office of Management and Budget and others related to how do we streamline the activities of carrying out research across the nation. And I would tell you that being part of this group, now that you are part of this group, is something that you should take full advantage of. You could get lost in the meetings. It's easier not to get lost on Zoom, but I assure you, when we are all vaccinated and back together, there will be opportunities for engagement, for they call libations and drinks, and partnership to discuss issues and then roll up our sleeves to problem solve as a result. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to my colleague, Michelle, to hear other testimonials from our colleagues and friends that are achieving much with the partnership of FDP.
Thank you, Robert. I just want to give a word of encouragement to any faculty members who may be on this call. I don't know how many there are, but we do have a faculty forum coming up in this FDP meeting next week. And at that faculty forum, which is open to all members, but it's a meeting for the faculty members, we'll be doing some agenda setting for phase 7 at that meeting. So if you're interested in getting more involved in FDP, or you have ideas about what you might like to contribute, we will have quite a bit of opportunity for interaction in that forum. So I strongly encourage you to join us, and I hope that we'll get to know you better, at least virtually for now, until we're able to meet in person. So with that, I turn it to the next slide. I think Susan, you're up next for a testimonial.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate that. So I represent the emerging research institutions within the FDP. I have the honor and privilege of having that role. I'm at the College of Charleston in South Carolina, and we're a public institution with a comparatively modest research activity compared to some of our sister institutions, but we recognize that emerging research institutions comprise an important part of the country's research enterprise. And we are fortunate that the FDP recognizes our role. And in phase 6, the ERI membership acquired committee status within FDP. I would echo Robert's comment that FDP provides a way to elevate the issues we deal with within our own institutions, as well as with fellow FDP institutions and our federal partners. During phase 6, we hosted a number of federal agency officials who led sessions focused on issues of interest to ERI members. We gained information to help us be more competitive for grants and greater awareness about federal programs that target ERIs. At the start of phase 7, our ERI membership has nearly doubled to 48 institutions. One goal is to ensure active ERI participation in all FDP activities. So I strongly encourage everyone to review our working groups, subcommittees, demonstrations, and committees, Reach out if you have questions and join in the work. Your perspective is valued. In addition, I will be seeking assistance with ERI leadership in Phase 7, so please let me know if you are interested. We also welcome ideas for ERI-specific activities. Please join our mailing list at FDP-ERI-L, and let's get Phase 7 off to a dynamic start. Thank you.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Julie Thatcher. I'm the Director of Sponsored Projects at the Institute for Systems Biology in Seattle, and I'm really happy to follow Susan to provide another testimonial. I personally started attending FDP in January of 2014, about 6 months after I started at ISB. And based on ISB's research expenditures, we're categorized as an emerging research institution. However, ISB really isn't, we're a nonprofit independent research institution. And as such, there are some really unique characteristics that set us apart from universities, both large and small. First and foremost, we don't grant degrees. Several of our faculty still mentor graduate students through affiliate appointments and such, but our faculty and scientists are focused almost exclusively on their research bench and computational at ISB. Without granting degrees, ISB has no tuition revenue. Although our scientific focus is human health, we don't provide any direct healthcare services. So likewise, we don't have any clinical revenue. Our scientists really support their full-time work almost exclusively through external grants and contracts. So this is really a high stakes process for them. We have a very lean administration with almost no bureaucracy, which our scientists really love. They almost always know who among us can help them administratively with whatever question they have, with whatever proposal they're ready to submit, and how to deal with the administrative burden of reporting and closeout. And they know precisely where to find us. In FDP's Phase 6, there were very few independent research institutions. A couple were frequent attenders, and ARI often sent a representative, the Association of Independent Research Institutions, but there wasn't a true independent research institution community. However, I personally still benefited. I heard agency updates directly from agencies. I engaged in real-time conversation and problem solving, which is really helpful for those of us who come from smaller administrations, because, you know, although the lean bureaucracy is good for our scientists, sometimes when we need to bounce ideas off of one another, there isn't that much in-house expertise. So it's been really fantastic to have friends, colleagues, collaborators at the FDP to grow with. Well, for example, I served on the original pilot committee for the expanded clearinghouse. And as such, when we were, given the tremendous task of this new subrecipient monitoring process five years ago or so, I had a tremendous amount of confidence in ISB's subrecipient monitoring process because of what I was doing with the FDP. And now we turn our sub-awards around in very, very short order. I still love serving on that steering committee, and I'm also heavily involved with other committees at FDP. I feel really plugged in, really, really connected. I'm really just so excited to see several more independent research institutions join in Phase 7. I counted, I think, around 15 or 16 or so of us, and a handful more maybe of healthcare institutions. And, a couple of them are even in my South Lake Union neighborhood in Seattle. So we may have a critical mass, at least enough to meet informally, maybe start a listserv, or even perhaps a number sufficient to form a subcommittee with similar status to the ERIs. The relationships I find and the advocacy possible through the FDP could really benefit the unique interests and needs, issues most impactful to independent research institutions. My contact information is on this slide, and I welcome your suggestions, your ideas, your camaraderie. I also want to offer my personal time and experience to any new independent research institution, individuals who might not be comfortable navigating FDP. You know, coming from a small office, I often flew from Seattle to DC on my own. It was challenging for me to recruit a faculty member to join me in the endeavor. And so I joined colleagues from larger institutions that sent, you know, half a dozen representatives, and I hitched a ride with the University of Washington, who's in my backyard, and they kind of adopted me. So I was really fortunate to get plugged in and connected at FDP. And I find that the way to really benefit from what FDP has to offer is to find a niche and to get involved. And if you need any help with that, I would be happy to, again, extend my time and experience to help you. Thanks for letting me extend a greeting, and I'll wrap up and hand it back over to Barbara.
Thank you, Julie. What a great segue into the fact that one of the things that we are going to be introducing very soon are virtual office hours hosted by differing FDP members. So please keep an eye out for that. Also want to quickly encourage you to put any of your questions in the Q&A, because after this slide, we'll be taking some time to answer those questions. We hope that you, if you haven't already, that you will sign up for the FDP meeting sessions next week. Lots and lots of valuable information comes out of that, as you have already heard. So we do hope that you join us. And also very soon there will be a call for volunteers from one of our newly formed working groups, the nominating working group. So if you're interested in that, please go on our website for more information, okay? So one of the questions that we had that wanted to know if the sub-award session that was mentioned earlier is going to be offering any information on the use of the subaward templates. I know there's going to be a separate session in the future for that, but what can we expect to be discussed in the next week's session? Does anyone want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can take that since I opened that. So the subcommittee will cover various things next week. They do a wonderful job of Probably they'll be focused more on the main agreement templates that were updated recently, but that includes the main subboard agreement that most of you are probably familiar with. They also do a great job of soliciting feedback and making some adjustments or revisions to the agreement based on some confusion with the language or other nuances. And so that's what they'll be focused on next week. The session that they're going to be offering as a standalone free session later in January will be drilling down more into each of the model agreement types and how to use them, what the pull down menus mean, how to fill them out, and that type of thing. They won't get into that detail later, but again, that later one, the standalone in late January, should be free and open to anybody at your institutions. I hope that answers your question, but feel free to reach out to me if you have further questions about that.
Great, thank you very much, Denise. On this slide, you can see the links to many of the sites that have been previously discussed. This is for your information, and do remember that these slides are going to be available to you with the links, so you don't have to be rushing around right now trying to write it down. We have another question. For troublesome clauses, do we just join the listserv? Would anyone like to answer that question?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, go ahead.
So the troublesome clauses, there will be a contract session next week, and I suggest that if you're interested in the troublesome clauses, that you join that. The current database that's on the website is somewhat outdated. It's still usable. You can contact David Wright to get access to that database. But what we'll be announcing next week is a reinvigorated troublesome clauses project, where we'll get the current contract issues that we're all dealing with and how they're being negotiated. So, and feel free to reach out to me directly, or Melissa Korp, who is one of the current co-chairs for the contract subcommittee, if you have any questions. And again, I encourage everybody to join that session.
Great. That's it. Does anyone else have any other questions? Otherwise, we'll go to the next slide. And remind everyone that once this ends, if you do come up with a question or something else that you wish to share, here are some common links to people's email addresses. So we really thank you all for the time that you have given us today to learn more about the FDP. Those of us who have been presenting to you have learned to value this organization greatly, and we welcome you to become part of this. We hope that you all have an excellent, excellent day, and we hope to see you next week. Would anyone else in the group wish to add anything? All right.
I would add my voice of welcome. We're delighted to have you with the FDP as an organization. We understand that we're going to have a very robust meeting. My understanding is we have something like 700 plus registrants for next week, so that's really exciting for us.
Wow.
We hope, I saw one question in the chat as to whether or not you can share the registration information with other colleagues on your campus, and the answer to that is yes. They would register as a member of your institution, and we welcome the participation, and we hope to see you next week.
Looking forward to it. Just reach out to us if you have any questions.
There you go. All right, guys. Thank you very much again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.